Awoken by an early dawn, bounced off my windowsill, a robin frantic with alarm. She hardly could sit still. I opened up the window glass and asked why so disturbed. Her chirping sad and very fast. I've lost one baby bird.
What draws people into Plumery Tails are the 7 Malamute dogs that roam the front yard just off of Highway 20 in Galena, Illinois. What brings people back and gets them to stay are the stories that are shared when they decide to see what this unique stop is all about. Life wasn't always a fairy tale for author Bret Terrell, and despite all of the stories he has written and told, there is one rather interesting one that not many have heard.
Got into the restaurant business at about 14. I knew this was what I wanted to do.
People loved him and they came from miles around to eat the food that he had made. We took over the restaurant and Bret was awesome. And unfortunately, we got in with somebody who is not a great character of a person.
First time he needed to come up with some money, he couldn't get it. So I was trying to do everything I could to get the restaurant back up, but it wasn't enough.
I knew that losing that restaurant was like the most devastating thing that could have ever happened.
And we lived in our van for 35 days. We had no home. We sold everything we had.
We traveled 30 states in 30 days looking for jobs, and we were probably the happiest that we'd ever been.
And when we moved to Iowa, I found myself in a demographic that wasn't looking for fine dining chefs. So I knew that having had done this once before and learned my lesson, I wasn't going to do it again.
So I am heartbroken for him because I know that that was his passion, but now I think he's found a new love and passion.
That's my boys.
After settling into their new home, the pair went on a trip to the Humane Society that ended a little differently than expected.
I always wanted a dog.
We weren't prepared for the responsibility or the upkeep of a dog, so I figured, well, I'll go get her a kitten.
She's got something fuzzy, something that she can love. We walk into the Humane Society, there's probably 12 cats there.
It broke my heart walking out with one, knowing it was going to a home, and the other cat's sitting behind.
There's a gentleman that was stopping everyone, and he said, "You guys want a dog?" And I think I must have started tearing up, just feeling bad that this dog needs a home.
Well, that brought tears to Kim's eyes.
And Bret said, "All right, we'll go."
But I can't promise anything. When we arrived at the gentleman's home, we went down into his basement, and across his window ran this beautiful gray wolf looking like canine.
Here comes this gray and white dog running by, and he's like, "If that's the dog, he's coming home with us." And Bret fell in love, and we brought him home.
Wow, if that's the dog, he's coming home with me.
Working odd jobs with his new best friend, Bret took Max everywhere he went. When Bret cut trees, Max watched carefully from below. Winter limited the job opportunities, which left Bret and Max with a lot of free time.
Everybody was enamored with Max. People would just come out of their homes and tell me what an awesome dog he was. And he went with me on every job. I knew that I could grasp a hold of people, and I used my writing technique to entice people to call me and hire me on to cut their lawns. And then during the winter months, there I was with writer's desire and nothing to write. So I started writing poetry. I had maybe 80 poems, and I decided to go talk to someone about publishing, and they expressed you're far too rhythmic, and rhythmic poetry is long gone. I certainly wasn't going to change my desire. I mean, this was my passion, my opportunity, my speaking out in a way that I felt most comfortable to do so. So they said, well, if you want to stay rhythmic, perhaps you might want to look into doing children's books. I decided to put Max in my whimsical stories. Well, thus came the adventures of Max and I.
Bret loved writing children's books with his dog as the main character, and the public loved them too. Max brought the books to life, offering an element to the story people couldn't find anywhere else. Soon, Max and Bret were off doing book signings and meet and greets, spreading the messages that Bret incorporated in each book. The 7 Max and I adventures were flying off the shelves, being sold all over the world. But just like any great story, this one had an unexpected turn.
As the stories say, Max is more than just a pet. You know, he's my friend, he's my confidant.
Oh boy, you're gonna make me cry. I loved Max like no other. But when we found out he had cancer, neither one of us knew what to do.
That was the hardest loss I'd ever had.
Ended up doing a bone biopsy with Max and a bone biopsy to make sure that he had bone cancer. I didn't realize bone cancer was the most painful cancer you could possibly have. So he was on a lot of medication. After a while, he just didn't want to take it anymore.
Nothing ever hit me so hard. Every dog has a certain place in my heart. Some bigger places, but every one of them would be hard-pressed for me to just say, well, I'll just replace it.
At that point when the vet got there, then you knew it was real. And I just remember her doing the first injection, and Bret was just literally sobbing and laying on top of him. And all I can think of, I have to help him. And so then they did the second injection, and Bret literally just, he couldn't get up. I mean, I'm crying too, but there was no consoling him. And then finally, after a little while, we finally got Max into the car and brought him to the vet. To see Bret lose it, I'm like, okay, I have to be the strong one here.
That put me down for a few months. At first, I wasn't even gonna continue on with it. I was done once we lost Max.
While Bret wasn't sure about writing more in the future, the author wanted another Max that could continue to bring his characters and stories to life. But why stop at 1? Soon 1 became 2, 2 became 4, and 4 turned to 7.
Max, Bear, Tundra, and Blackie. Dog number 5 was Glacier. Lambo was born, dog number 6. On came Odin, number 7.
With all of the new dogs, the buzz around the book skyrocketed. It was only a matter of time until a new book inspiration was born.
First story I wrote in the Plumery Tails series was A Break Through the Ice. It was a true story, an actual event where I was walking Max, little Max, and Bear out at the mines of Spain where I used to walk Big Max all the time. I heard crash. I turned around and my dog is in the Mississippi River. So I went out to the edge of the ice carefully, leaned over, and I went to pull him in, and sure enough, the ice broke up underneath me. I finally get Max out of the water. I'm stuck. But I noticed Bear had a dangling pinch collar that used to be Big Max's, and using it, Bear pulls me out of the water and saves my life. And because it wasn't a Max adventure, I had to come up with a new title. Well, it's a tale, and that's what I do, is I tell tales. I like the idea of Plumery Tails because they're feathery. My dog's tails are plumery, and Plumery Tails just sounded like an awesome title for a book series. So it was called, the first story was called Plumery Tails, A Break Through the Ice, The Adventures of Little Max and Bear. And that was how it started.
Adding 4 Plumery Tails adventures to the list of published work, the popularity continued to grow. Having 7 Malamute dogs bringing the stories to life didn't hurt either.
I'd be sitting out with the dogs outside, and people would just constantly keep pulling into the parking lot. And I'd just get finished talking to one group of people, and then another group would come in. So we decided, well, if there's that much intrigue, we'll go ahead and open up a meet and greet opportunity where we can tell people about the dogs. Maybe that'll entice them into the books, and thus it does.
The dogs catch the public's eye, while the books touch the reader's heart, giving meaning to the characters that roam the front yard and bringing people back for more, time and time again.
He likes to keep it old-fashioned. You meet the author, you meet the characters, you get their paw prints, you hear the story. Because if you don't hear the story, you wouldn't know what the whole premise is. And it doesn't mean as much. Otherwise, it's just a book that a kid's gonna throw on the counter and not ever look at. And that emotional connection is people just, they want to come back and get that every single time. You're not gonna find that anywhere else.
I know I'm relaying a great message to kids, and that makes me feel pretty awesome. I'm always trying to to instill some form of family value or moral value for the kids. It's not even about writing stories. You know, the poetry is my outlet. The stories are my opportunity, and everybody should have an opportunity. Miss Robin scoped the overview while I looked on the ground. Inquired Max, "What can I do?" We both said, "Sniff around." Just under where that nest resides, Max sniffed and sniffed and sniffed. Miss Robin, getting teary-eyed, her flight began to drift. Max's next step forward was not took. His tail once still gave wag. I yelled up to Miss Robin, "Look, I think Max found your babe." The three of us each gave high fives. The family is now a whole. Miss Robin swooping as she dives with jubilant control. Once settled down, she raised her wing to bid us both goodbye. Another songbird gets to sing because of Max and I.